So I have two questions that are similar, and I'm going to try to speak to both of them. One question is, how can we align with our declarations? And the other is, how do we contemplate causality, entangle one area of our life into another, and bring to life our declarations and our being? So how do we align with our declarations? How do we contemplate causality? How do we entangle one area of our life into another? And how do we bring to life our declarations in our being? So first, for those who don't know what we mean by declarations, I am, as much as I am enamored and interested and focused on the idea of extricating my experience, myself, from the illusory nature of thought and form, and the patterning, the conditioned patterning that I have. I'm equally interested in having a conscious role in the inevitable patterning that will occur, that will have a role in driving my behavior. Because I don't actually believe you can be completely 100% extricated from patterning and conditioning at all times. It will have an influence to some degree throughout my life, and so I want to have a role both in extricating myself from it and influencing it. And so this first question, how can I align with my declarations, is really in reference to how can I become congruent with, in my way of being, what I declare as a pattern, as an idea. So another way of saying that is, how could I condition my subconscious, unconscious, subconscious behavior and experience of reality so that it matches with the idea itself that I'm speaking, that I'm declaring. And in one of my audio programs, I talk about this concept of what I call contemplating causality, contemplating the reason why a declaration is true. Because the idea is that through contemplating how that idea is true, that statement is true, it creates neural association, it creates energy around it. It actually makes it true. By thinking about how something's true, it feels more true to us, and therefore it becomes more accessible, becomes more of a pattern that we express. So how can we do that? I just have a real simple way of experiencing things internally. And it's from the concept Abracadabra. I create as I speak, so I speak something, and then through speaking it, I hang out in the wake of that speaking and see what's there. So for example, I am loving awareness is a declaration. That's one that I like to use to speak. I am loving awareness, and I could just sit, I could speak that, and I could sit in the wake of that, and I could look and see what comes up. Or I could give it a little bit more help. I could guide myself a little bit more by saying something to the effect of, I am loving awareness because I am loving kindness. So I'm just asserting, I'm declaring a causative statement. I am something because I am something else. Well, doesn't have to be, the second part doesn't have to be another declarative statement. I could say, I am loving awareness because people eat Fruit Loops. I'm just putting something after a causative, after the word because. I'm asserting and declaring cause. So a lot of times we think that we can only declare cause when we have evidence. I'm just doing the reverse. I'm declaring cause and allowing evidence to be something that emerges through my sitting with that idea, that potential at that point. So it's a potential. Declarative, causative statement is a potential. So I am loving awareness because I am loving kindness. So what happens is you just have to look for the aspect of that that's true. Bask in the potential of that statement being true. Because you could do one of two things. You could look for what's not true in that, or you could look for what's true in that. And all I'm doing is I'm saying I'm going to intentionally look for what's true in this statement as an act of creation of truth. Right? And by the act of creation of truth, I mean truth with a small t, right? The truth of a stable pattern in me, something that's become conditioned, feels familiar. Just because something's familiar, which means the pattern, doesn't mean it's an absolute truth. It just means that it's got the occurrence of truth for me, and that's what I'm looking to create through the focus of my attention on this idea. I am loving awareness because it's a creation, because I am loving kindness. The first thing that I see through my contemplation of how that's true is that I see a moment of me being kind with my son earlier, and I just realized, shit, the only reason that I could be kind is because I had the awareness from love to be that way. If I didn't have the awareness, then I couldn't be that. So wow, I've just found a little piece of evidence that makes the idea that I'm loving aware more true. And now every act of kindness is only possible, I'm seeing this with you now in real time as we create this, the only way that I can actually be kind from love, a lovingly kind person, is because I have loving awareness. Therefore, every act of kindness is just another piece of evidence that I have and am loving awareness. So I just create association. I make a declarative statement about who I am, a declaration. I put the word because after it, and then I put anything on the other side, and I hang out in that, and I look for truth. I look for evidence. I look for examples. I'm building something up. I could do the opposite. When we do this subconsciously, I look for counterexamples. I make things not true, and I take myself away from create a pattern that I want to create. And it's a very subtle thing. You have to be with the feeling of it. You have to feel your way to truth. I'm more concerned with the feeling of truth. This is how to align with declarations, right? To align with a declaration is to feel what I speak. And so how I feel, my congruence in my body with that idea is more important than the words. It's way more important than the words. Being something is more important than the speaking of it. Speaking it, I think of declarations like, when I was a kid, my dad would build houses. He was a general contractor, property investing and things like that, and he would buy a piece of land and have the trucks come in and dig out a hole, and then and this was the coolest part for me. I couldn't wait for the forms to go up. And the forms are these scaffolding, essentially, that they put up and that they pour liquid concrete into. And then after the concrete hardened, they pull the scaffolding away. And I think of declarations, speaking an idea like, I am loving awareness, I am loving kindness, I am the happiest guy I know, money is liquid and flows in abundance. Declarations, concepts, I think of these as like the scaffolding, the forms. And we're just using them. I'm just using them to hold space for the liquid concrete of emotion to be poured in, for the experience in life, the sensory experience of that happening to be poured in. That's what makes it real. And at some point, the words fall away, and there's just the being of that. And so the concrete that becomes hardened represents the neural conditioning, the patterning of that idea, that concept, that way of being inside me that just operates subconsciously. In the same way when you learn to drive a car, at first it's very conscious, and then you just do it without even paying attention, hopefully not while texting, but that's how it works. It just becomes a thing that lives in you and is played out. And we are driven by subconscious patterning. And we can disassociate a little bit from that to a certain degree. We can have moments of enlightenment where we're not pulled by that and we're connected to something greater. And there's a creative intelligence moving through us. And hopefully throughout our life, that the amount of time that we can spend in that place is greater and greater. We're more and more free. And inevitably, it snaps back. We become subject. And we're living in it. And so I'm also interested in having that subject, that pattern, that personality to be created in such a way that it's coherent with my heart as much as it possibly can be. So, how do I entangle one area of my life into another as an aspect of becoming aligned with my state of being? So I talked about contemplating causality. Another thing I contemplate is just the association between a certain idea and my life. Any area of my life. And so I am loving awareness, and if I speak that and I want to see that idea, and I contextualize it to, okay, well, what's on my calendar today? What's today look like? Okay, I'm going to be going to the gym. What's it look like if I'm loving awareness when I walk into my gym? How do I greet people? What do I see in them? What do I feel in my body? Okay, what comes out of me? Just play that movie out. Cool. What when I come home, then I shower and brush my teeth? What if I'm loving awareness when I'm just showering and brushing my teeth and getting ready for the day? What does that look like? oh wow, interesting. Maybe I wouldn't put the music on. I would just be still and silent and just be with what's actually happening. Interesting. And I start to just contextualize the declaration, the idea, into a certain area or aspect of my life. And the different areas, I mean, I could pick certain areas, or I could just look at my day. What's happening? What's coming? I'm going to go to the cafe and meet my friend later. I'm going to walk in. I'm going to see people I know, people I don't know. What would that look like if I were loving awareness in that moment? So contextualizing a concept can actually create a movie in your mind, which can actually start to create a feeling in your body. So in a similar way that through a meditative practice that develops mindfulness, one will start to witness how they're seeing, how they're hearing, and how they're feeling as a way of disassociating and disembedding from that subjective experience to have it relax and quiet down. I'm doing the inverse in the contemplation of a declaration in a way that brings it to life. So I'm creating an experience that I can become subject to. So I'm speaking, which was hearing words, and then I'm contextualizing those concepts to a certain area of my life, something that's happening, and through contextualizing these declarations to a context in my life, going to the gym, brushing my teeth, what happens is that generates imagery in my mind that's representative of that context, of that concept, right? And so I'm speaking, which is hearing, and then I'm seeing, and then inevitably, if I can speak it and see it, I will start to feel it. And the more I can feel something, the more I can speak more. More thoughts come from feelings, and I can speak those, and I can contextualize that, and then that can create more imagery, and that can create more feeling, and I just cycle it. So it's the reverse of a mindfulness practice, a see, hear, feel mindfulness practice. I'm actually generating internal, imagined experience and feeling, and doing the same process in reverse. And the more I feel it, the more I see it, the more I speak it, the bigger and greater it gets. It's pouring liquid concrete into the forms. And eventually, at some point, the words fall away. So, how do we align with our declarations? How do we entangle one area of our life into another? How do we contemplate causality? That's what I have for you. And if you do that, by pouring liquid concrete into the forms of your words, it will start to create that in your body, and it will be expressed. It becomes a pattern, and it becomes alive, and it starts to come out of you. That's how you bring it to life, in you and in your life and in your state of being. So practice these things with gently and lightly. Hold them lightly. The quality with which you relate to these ideas and practice them is more important than how you do it or anything else. Hold them lightly. Have fun with it. There's nowhere to get to. Just be with the moment of the experience and enjoy it. This is it. Doing it is the thing. It's not, don't do it to get somewhere. You crush it, you collapse it. Do it to love that. Love the process. There's nowhere to get to. It's an endless journey. So enjoy every moment, especially today, because today is the perfect day for you to create who you are. You're loved, and you're powerful, and I'm loving you so much simply for your being here. Talk to you soon.